Hello, everyone. Today I am talking about the myth, the legend, the icon who has returned to us after 6 years out of the limelight. Miss Adele, the singer who can sing so elegantly, so classily, so soulfully, and then speak to you in her normal voice saying, "Oi, yeah, I shagged him in the back of a pub." That sounded a little Australian, but you get what I mean. She's got that thick Cockney accent. Adele is a marvel of the music industry today. She is selling and putting up numbers in the industry that no other artist, besides maybe Taylor Swift, can come close to. Her new album 30, which just released this past Friday, like I said, 6 years after her last 25. We weren't sure when this album was ever going to come. In my track review for Easy on Me, the new lead single that she dropped in October, I discussed, I believe, that at one point we were hearing that she wasn't going to name an album after her age anymore, that was something she was going to stop with 25. But yet here we are with 30. She is, of course, 33 now, a testament to the fact that this album has probably been seriously delayed, probably largely due to the pandemic. It seems pretty clear that this album was originally intended to come out last year, had the pandemic never happened. She was even scheduled and did host SNL last year. So I think that was originally planned before everything fell apart. And she decided to still host and do like one strange random media appearance without any new music coming out, which was very puzzling for all of us. A year later, we finally get the product that is probably a year late, given the fact that she even states in interviews that she was starting to think, gosh, if I didn't get this album out by now, I'm going to have to scrap the whole thing because I'm already moving on. I'm already 33. Like, there's new things I want to write about. So this album finally is out and she can kind of cleanse herself of the divorce messiness that is so much of what this album is conceptually based upon. This is an album of true heartbreak, of, a feeling of confusion and loss after dealing with a divorce where you have a young child and that child is all you have to cling to. And the last thing you want to do is inflict any sort of pain, confusion, or suffering on them. Her ex-husband, apparently, Simon, I believe is his name, lives just across the street from her in Los Angeles, well, in Hollywood. So it's more amicable than you might think. But she, is very much set on being independent from him. And a lot of people are also giving a testament to the fact that she's stating that it's not because I want to blame him for doing everything wrong. It's because I just wasn't happy enough. And that's a standard that I think a lot of people should be adhering to when they're thinking about why they want to break up with someone. There isn't any skeleton in the closet as to regard of his behavior that she can pinpoint and say, of course she'll have her side, he'll have his side on certain things. They just weren't fit for each other after several years. They got married in 2012, I believe, the same year that she had her son, Angelo, who features in some of the tracks, on one of them, which had people like Piers Morgan quite riled up. We always love to rile up Piers Morgan. That seems to be actually quite a triumph and a accolade. If you can piss him off, then you're doing something right. But I'll get to that in a second. So I've already talked about the lead single, Easy on Me, and I'm not going to spend too long harping on it, but I will say this song is going to appear on my favorite songs of the year video. I have been increasingly loving this emotional, stripped back, kind of simplistic ballad, but with a really powerful chorus that, I don't know, I'm seeing a lot of mixed reviews on still to this day. I think a lot of people expected more from her, and I think that this is the classic kind of quintessential Adele that I still am gladly going to gobble up. Yes, it is a little bit simple, but there is such a sweeping essence of regret and recollection with deep kind of past issues that comes through the melody of this song, where you feel like you've come out the other side of some really hard pain. And when you listen to it, I don't know, it still gets me very emotional. In fact, in the context of the whole record, it's even more biting and emotional when it's track number 2. I'm like, very few songs bring tears to my eyes these days, but my first listen to this record pretty much did that, as it did for probably a lot of people. I heard one person remark that if Adele released music more frequently, we would probably be critiquing her lack of evolution in style a lot more than we do. A lot of people are, I think, thinking, oh, maybe we're giving her a lot of praise and accolade just because we're so glad she's back. We all loved 21. We all loved 25. It's something that she almost, her reputation precedes her in that way. And are we really giving this album a fair, balanced review? That's something I've seen some reviewers, hint at. And I do want to do my best at being fair and slightly unbiased in that regard. I wouldn't consider myself an Adele stan. I still haven't heard all of 19. I know, don't crucify me. I need to go back and listen. I've heard Hometown Glory. I've heard, all the singles. Love, 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 love them, but I haven't fully listened. I wasn't paying attention to Adele back then. It was not until 21 came out that the buzz exploded. And of course, 21 is an album I've only continued to appreciate over the last decade. Songs like Turning Tables, Rumor Has It, One and Only, Love Song. This album has I'll Be Waiting. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And it was a really great classical, a really great soulful 60s jazzy sort of tribute album in that regard, but it still had really great pop sounding singles that were up tempo and fun. When 25 came out, I'm going to be completely honest with you. There was a bit of that hype because it had been almost 5 years at that point since she'd released an album. We were all very much anticipating it. And Hello was this euphoric giant smash hit of a song with this atmospheric belting chorus that would have Celine Dion going, wow. But then the album itself, I thought was a bit lackluster. I don't remember thinking, oh my God, this is album of the year material. There were certainly a few songs that stood out to me. I have not reviewed any Adele albums on this channel, by the way. This was before I had this channel that I was reviewing music. But my favorite songs off of 25, Hello, River Lee, All I Ask, those songs were super strong. I actually really like Sweetest Devotion. But there were a lot of misses from Water Under the Bridge, When We Were Young. But about half the album is a bit of a miss for me. I don't find songs like Send My Love to Your New Lover or I Miss You that compelling. And I think they're actually derivative style pop songs that I don't think are that special, that Adele or any other artist could sing. And I don't think that there's anything catchy or interesting about them to my taste. So I found that album a little bit underwhelming. And again, something you're going to see in this review of this record, I don't think Adele really nails the more radio-friendly up-tempo pop tracks anymore. That's something in territory I just don't think she's as well suited for, or maybe she just needs to work with better producers. We've got a different array of producers on this project, although longtime collaborator Greg Kurstin, who always works his magic over her works, is at the helm here. She delves into a lot of different styles on this record, and that's led to a lot of people thinking this album lacks a focus, or that it's a little directionless in sound. And although I could agree with them to some degree, I do appreciate exploration. I don't necessarily want every single song to sound the same, or even of the same era. This album has influences going all the way back to the 1950s and 60s to today, with the pop hits of today and trap R&B influence. So I think it's a great album that has timeless appeal in that regard, but also can speak to the current era of pop music. I just don't think the songs that speak to the current era are nearly as strong or special as the ones that feel a lot more heartfelt and a lot more like thought and process was put into it that makes it sound much more sincere and visceral, and not just like a throwaway demo from another pop artist. With that being said, 25 did win the Grammy for Album of the Year, which I think, looking back, was a huge mistake on the Academy's part, for many reasons. First of all, Lemonade deserved. Let's be real. I think we can objectively look at that and say in those two cases that Lemonade did deserve that win. And secondly, I think the Academy needs to realize that Adele's not done. She's going to put out more records. Maybe she can put out a better record than 25. So the thing that I'm going to really struggle with here is the fact that if 25 ends up winning a Grammy for Album of the Year and 30 doesn't, we're going to have a problem. And that's basically what I want to get at the meat of this review for, because do you think that I'm going to slight this record that much? No, no, no. I think that this album is an absolute triumph when you kind of squint your eyes and look past some of the slight, missteps for me in a few of the songs, mostly the up-tempo ones, and I'll get to that in a minute when I go through the track listing. Overall, I think that this is a stellar project. Maybe it's because we haven't had such a strong year of music releases I feel like we've been let down by a lot of comebacks from certain artists. This year, Adele is standing out like really, but I do think that this album is her best yet, at least in terms of when she gets to those high, really well crafted songs that are so gut wrenchingly emotional that I think you just have to surrender to its power. I think that Adele is well suited for the lane that she's in this soulful R&B tinged, jazz infused balladry that you just are always going to fall in love with her voice, the way she lets it explode, the way she lets it, falter and flex and then relax. There's this captivating aura to it. Our opening track, Strangers by Nature, I think is the perfect opener to a more cinematic, classic Hollywood 60s sounding melody that intros a story that she is trying to tell. The song is reminiscent of a Judy Garland power anthem that Adele admits in her songwriting was very much inspired by. She watched the Renee Zellweger Judy biopic, and she wanted to create a song that she felt was not really written by the artists of today. Something classical, something whimsical, and something more timeless. If we're going in the chronology of the aftermath of the divorce in 2019, then this is the very first moment where the skies do clear. That sort of storm that had been brewing over the relationship, it had its apex. And now, finally, we are separating and we're going to look at things very differently. The path that is opening up before us is thrilling, it's enticing, it's new. We haven't really experienced the darkness that's yet to come. But there is obviously a lamentative quality. She, very sort of bittersweetly croons, "I'll be taking flowers to the cemetery of my heart for all of my lovers in the present and in the dark. Every anniversary I'll pay respects and say I'm sorry, for they never stood a chance, as if they could, when no one knows what it's like to be us." I'm thinking she's referring to her and her child when she refers to us, but she could also be referring to this relationship being the most recent relationship that all of her previous relationships never held a candle to, even though it did also end up failing. I've never seen the sky this color before. It's like I'm noticing everything a little bit more. Strangers by nature, will I ever get there? I hope that someday I'll learn to nurture what I've done. This is a very painful and, shocking sort of thing that's happening to me right now. I never thought I would be getting divorced, but this is happening, and I have a child, and I'm not going to panic about this. I am going to choose to look hopefully at the future and admit that this could be the best decision I've ever made. And there's such hope in this melody, but it's a melody that walks that tightrope of, falling into the chasm of oblivion of sorrow. And I think that's why it is such a brilliant way to open us up with a melody that entrances us with its whimsical melody, but also with the undercurrents of something very major and epic is happening here. The strings that she brings in, the symphonic string sections, are some of the strongest points of instrumentation on this record for me. And we intro right into, after a very beautiful, sparkling, more modern synth cascade saying, "All right, I'm ready." We're ready to take on the bulk of the sorrow that we have to process through in the track list of this record. And of course, here it comes, Easy on Me, with its epic rolling piano. Like I said, the song, it's just chef's kiss to me, but it's so powerful and so difficult to listen to in certain times and frames of mind. But I don't understand why people think it's lackluster. Beyond the fact that, yeah, it doesn't have all the bells and hoops and whistles of other, more produced Adele hits. But that's not what this album's about. Track number 3, My Little Love. The first taste of a longer, more indulgent melody, which is definitely something that she plays with on this album. With a harmonizing, melodic, lullaby-like, cooing vocal weaving in and out of the backbone of this song, we paint a picture of a woman in complete turmoil and distress. I don't think a song can better encapsulate what it is like to be a young mother dealing with all these emotions and trying to keep your head up because you know that's what you have to do for your child, and dealing with all of the weight that's coming upon you as it appears in that sonic rainfall of melody, and it's heavy. I've got a lot to learn. I'm holding on, but just barely, as her echoing sort of self comes bearing down on her, which I think is some of the most clever call and response harmonious harmony work that she has in this entire record. Some of the most orally satisfying affections on this track for me. I love the interspersing of these little voice memos. You know, what Pierce is saying about how he feels it's taking advantage of her young son dealing with these emotions. Obviously, I'm sure that she, got his permission. Some people might argue that what does his permission really mean when he's that young? Does he really understand the context? But the truth is that people have been using sound bites of loved ones on albums for eons. This is not anything new. And for Pierce to act like Adele's the first person to include a recording of their child, it's just, to me, it's like, you don't understand art. You just don't understand art. It is integral to telling this story. And I think that interspersing it amongst these grander choruses of melody is such a deft way to sort of weave a diary-like entry of a really bleak day, a really bad, anxious day, as she illustrates towards the end, expressing a feeling that I think all of us fear when we leave someone and we are like realizing maybe being single isn't all it's cracked up to be, when loneliness creeps in and we worry, is it just going to be tonight or is this going to be every night going forward? I really felt that. But on track number 4, we get a little bit of a slap in the face. We say, look, you need to stand up, you need to dust yourself off, grab that napkin, dry your eyes, cry your heart out, but clean your face. We've got work to do. Out of all of the up-tempo tracks on the record, this is by far the strongest for me. The jazzy Motown rhythm of the guitar and the bass gives you a feeling of going to a nightclub for the first time after being out of the limelight for a long time and getting back to singing, which is something that obviously is a rock for her when she's going through these turbulent times. The distorted, higher-pitched vocals for the chorus, I actually think are ingenious. It gives it a classic sort of 1950s housewife aesthetic, and I think that that's very telling for the sort of feminist undercurrent of a lot of this record, which is that, as women lean into a feminine sort of vulnerability that I think, has often been looked down upon. And this is sort of a way of like celebrating what it is to be vulnerable and feminine. And remember, feminine does not mean female. This can apply to males as well. It is always important to cry. It can be so helpful, so healthy. It really does clean your face. It can clear your nasal passages, that's for sure, though for a moment it can be very congested up there, but we want to go quite literally. But this is the healthy, healing part of the process. And I think that this song actually belongs in the track list for its weight and symbolic, power in the story of this narrative she's telling. But the next couple songs I'm going to talk about sort of together, we have Oh My God and Can I Get It? Looking at the two and weighing them, I think I prefer Can I Get It just a smidge more, as I do think the melody is slightly more catchy and I prefer the instrumentation. Both of the songs I'm having a hard time sitting with on a record like this. This is an album that understandably does need maybe some variety and a moment where things do look up. But this isn't exactly what I'm looking for on this record. This is a completely different character. There's a little bit more of a rambunctious personality coming out, something that Adele has always shown on previous more up-tempo tracks, but she really leans back from doing on this record as she appears so much more fragile, vulnerable, and wizened in her lyrics. Oh My God being a, with the fact that I'm gonna have to get back out there and find someone new. This could happen like a whirlwind. It could happen very quickly. It could be very, tumultuous. I'm not such a fan of the computerized Ellie Goulding-esque vocals that, kind of flit in and out of the melody here. And on the most confident song, Can I Get It? She is, very confidently boasting that she is ready to open herself up to something she really wants with someone. And it's a very sensual sort of plea for that sort of tryst. And I appreciate and understand in the story that she is telling that this is a part of it. This was a part of the story where she was going out and she was realizing, like, I'm single. There's all these things I haven't been able to explore. I need to celebrate what it is to be single. At the end of the day, it's more about the fact that I'm just not really down for these types of songs. I don't really think that they're offering anything unique or special that Adele can offer. These are songs that can be sung by any pop star. And it's dime a dozen. That's all I can really say. There's nothing that special about it. Max Martin and Shellback doing it for just another artist. That's how it feels for me. Though this is definitely the most country tinged track on the record. We get into the longer opuses here. We have I Drink Wine, a melody that has grown on me in its, hymn-like cathartic nature, where she's basically talking to herself and like admitting that, all of these mistakes I've made, all of these fixations I have on the past, I need to let all of that go. I need some substance in my life, something real, something that feels true. I love the backing vocals. The Elton John influence is very, very strong on this one. A great classic 70s ballad. I think that she knows how to really command the stage and the way a melody is supposed to jump out and kind of sit at your heart. I think that she just has such a great ear for that. And this is definitely one that I think is a bit more of a grower, but I think is such a crowd pleaser, especially if you see it performed live. It's such a, testament to the will to move on and see the positive in things. And it's interesting that the title is I Drink Wine because, that's a kind of humorous title that we all saw and we're like, oh, this is the most relatable title I think anyone's ever made. And she never actually fully says that, though she does hint at it in the very early verse. Soaking it all up for fun, but now I only soak up wine. Admitting that, there's been a lot of indulgent nights in, curled up in a ball, as she illustrates, drinking wine a little too much. I can relate, except not for the wine part. I'm in my sad girl autumn or my sad girl winter now, my single sad girl winter. And I understand what it means to kind of just, lay into your indulgences a little too much. But hey, it's relatable for all of us. We all need our vices to cope, though hopefully we don't use alcohol too much. The interlude All Night Parking, a piano-speckled interlude with a bit more of a modern contemporary trap production that's brought to us by this producer Inflow, who I actually do think, adds an interesting modern element to a song that is obviously backboned by some very, early 20th century jazzy piano in the late Earl Garner's music. The idea of what it is to stay the night with someone for the first time that you're really interested, and parking your heart next to them. It's sort of like a metaphor that I think she illustrates so whimsically and sensually here. And I think that there's a definite echo of her earlier records. I think 19 and that sort of girl in London just singing at a bar, I do get Amy Winehouse vibes. I get Amy Winehouse vibes from one other track. There's something about the tone and the delivery of her vocal that is just very distinctively Amy. Almost as if it's a tribute to her. Woman Like Me is the one real acoustic moment where we have just the guitar, and it's a little bit more of a fireside sounding guitar melody, very soft, very wintry, and it does meander a little bit in length. I think this is a song that could have possibly benefited from some trimming, but overall, it's started to grow on me. I think the melody is very ominous. It's sort of like a warning. Complacency is the worst trait to have. Are you crazy? You ain't never had a woman like me. It is so sad a man like you could be so lazy. Consistency is the gift to give for free, and it is key to ever keep a woman like me. Women should never have to settle, and men should be consistent, and so should the other partner, and vice versa. You should never get complacent in a relationship, and you should be consistent. You should stay true and integral and give all that you can all of the time, as best as you can. Although you can tell she's deeply angry and bitter, she delivers it with such a smooth, kind of lackadaisical manner, which kind of echoes this feeling of she's risen above the rage, but she's still going to rip him a new one, just as one last sort of post-divorce send-off. So now we have the trio of over 6-minute songs. This is where some people might find this album and its nearly hour-long runtime to drag a little bit. If I had to pick what my least favorite of these 3 trio songs would be, I really hate to say it, but I think it would be Hold On. This is a song I still need a little bit more time with to not feel its runtime. The other 2 songs, fly by. Don't feel it, don't need it to be shortened by any bit. Any second off of that would be, I think, sacrilege, because those songs are so anthemic, so part of a story, so part of a rise and fall of emotion, that a longer song time is better suited for. But Hold On gets a little indulgent. It's a very gospel choir sounding moment where she is trying to get us up all of our seats on the church pew, sway back side to side, clap our hands to the rhythm, hold each other's hands and sing Kumbaya. I get it, but this is the one part of the record where I do wish the lyrics plumbed the depths just a little bit more, as some of it with the lyrical repetitive nature of just hold on, better days are coming, let love be patient. I understand the sentiment, but I want to see what we're holding on from, what we're dealing with, what we're going through. I want to see that better illustrated instead of it just being another testament to resilience and strength way and the same kind of platitudes that are given to us in a feel-good poster on the wall of a Baptist church. And to me, that's what this song kind of gives me. It's a little kitschy. It feels a little bit pandering. It feels like she's just wanting to have her gospel moment, but the emotional sentiment beneath it, I don't feel so strongly as other songs because I don't feel so into the story. I don't feel like it's so personal to her. And it's more like she's just singing to the congregation about general struggles in life. It's still something we all need to hear and we all need that pep talk for, but maybe I've just graduated a little bit beyond more kind of generalized platitudes and motivational posters. And maybe that's why this song falls flat. But also don't find the melody quite as strong. To Be Loved is a gut punch. It is a gut punch. It is, I believe, officially the longest song on the record. It is just her at the piano, basically extolling the true innermost pain that comes from dealing with love and heartbreak, that it's a transaction we all have to make. There is no way around this if you want to fall in love, if you want to play that game, which she talks about in the next track, which I think is brilliant. I built a house for a love to grow. I was so young that it was hard to know. I'm as lost now as I was back then. Always make a mess of everything. It's about time that I face myself. All I do is bleed into someone else. Painting walls with all my secret tears, filling rooms with all my hopes and fears. But oh my, I'll never learn if I never leap. I'll always yearn if I never speak. To be loved and loved at the highest count means to lose all the things I can't live without. Let it be known that I will choose to lose. It's a sacrifice, but I can't live a lie. Let it be known that I tried. No truer testament to love and heartbreak has ever been written. This is definitely the crescendo of the record. This is the zenith of the pain and heartbreak expressed. And I think that it is a anthemic melody. I think it's a simple one, but it is one that tugs and hits right where it needs to in the core, without, disguising itself in frilliness. It's resolute. It's to the point. The chords are simple and powerful and resonant. To be loved and loved at the highest count means to lose all the things I can't live without. I've been thinking about that line more than any other line on this record. And I think that it's something that speaks to what I've been thinking about as I navigate the trials and tribulations of heartbreak and dealing with relationships and forming them. There is a, hidden contract that we all have to sign, which is that we agree to have our hearts ripped out if we choose to fall in love with someone and put our trust in them to uphold their end of the bargain. But it is always a two-way bargain. There is always something that could, out of your control, fall apart. And it is something that you have to sacrifice. And you have to be willing to sacrifice it almost in knowing at the moment of transaction that that's going to happen. You have to anticipate it. And it's better than living a lie to do so. And living a lie is definitely nothing that you want to put yourself into. That's not a box you want to live in. Let it be known that I always try, that I always cling to this optimistic hope that things will work out. But if they don't, that's not on me. I did my part of the bargain. I fulfilled the transaction, and I always knew what I was signing up for. That's how I translate these lyrics, and it's something that we all could do well to remember as we step headfirst into that new relationship. It's heavy stuff, but it's so important if we're processing the grief in the times when it doesn't turn out the way it could. Because let's be real, 9 times out of 10, this stuff doesn't work out. Eventually, it might fall apart. and you need to be prepared to reckon with that. She mentioned that she might not even ever sing this song live. Boy, hitting those notes live will definitely take it out on her voice, that's for sure. As in the last refrain, she really lets herself crumble vocally. And I think that that's the Adele we all love to hear. That growling undertone to her voice as it explodes like a burst of steam. And it peters out just as it expresses that emotion in the most primal from her stomach way. And I think that that's something that she really needed to get out there and exercise. But I could see how it would be very trying to sing live, especially a lot of times. The last track, Love is a Game, resumes sort of back to that Hollywood 1960s, 50s musical kind of feeling as she has the backing vocals crooning in over a sweet, sensual, lighthearted melody, singing about how love is the ultimate game for fools to play, how crazy it would be to self-inflict that pain. And I do find it interesting because it definitely sounds as though she's done with love and that she's realized she is far above that. Oh, you won't see me getting married ever again, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think that's what she really means. I think it, again, is sort of a way of somewhat cynically, but also in a way to protect your heart, comment on the brutality of love and heartbreak and romance so that you're better prepared the next time it all falls apart. As the curtain falls on this story that she is telling here, this cautionary tale about romance. I think that ultimately you could be left feeling very sour and bitter and cynical about the idea of true love. But I don't necessarily think that's the ultimate point and end goal here. I think that the ultimate point and end goal of this record is to remember what it is that you have to live for, what it is that you can take from your past experiences and learn to be better from, what it is that it is to love a child if you're dealing with a child in a divorce and keeping them as your rock and center, what it is to look to the future and find hope after such bleak heartbreak. Those are the key core principles that she is trying to express. The cynicism that's laid on top as sort of like a little finish on it, I think is more just tongue-in-cheek and a fun way of wrapping up this little post-divorce bow of a package that, is the sentiment that I think a lot of people are going to go through after they're dealing with such a tumultuous breakup. It's just the time, it's just the phase everyone goes through. Eventually, you'll be in the honeymoon phase of a relationship again, and you'll think very differently about all of these things. And some people might not relate to this record because of that. If you're in the honeymoon phase of a really strong relationship, honey, this album ain't for you. This album is just going to be a huge downer for you. But this is definitely for anyone who's gone through divorce, anyone who has kids and has struggled with relationships, potentially going through divorce or almost or breaking up, and just for anyone who's dealt with heartbreak in general. And I think that this is going to be a staple record for that. I think that there have been a lot of great breakup records, a lot of great divorce records, but Adele always finds a way to sort of just find a way to be at the pinnacle of, I think, that sort of mass appealing, deeply emotive, but also kind of easily accessible, feminine, vulnerable expression of pain and sorrow that still feels like it's got a lot of power behind it, that there is a confidence that she takes with this. And I think a lot of artists are doing the same thing. Some people might think that Adele gets a little too much credit for all of this, that there are so many other artists, female artists, that sing even more poetically and intriguingly about dealing with the pain of suffering and heartbreak. Maybe her lyrics are a little too general, a little too basic. I have to remember that Adele is a very mass appealing mainstream artist. And so her music, much like a lot of the music of, great, jazz and swing artists of that era of the past, they had very accessible lyrics because they wanted to connect with people. They just wanted people to feel the same emotion that they were feeling and not leave it up to sort of this, enigmatic mystery. And I understand the appeal of doing it that way as well. But I don't really discredit Adele for making somewhat simpler and more relatable lyricism. I think that, there's a place and time for both types of expression. And we've got artists who do both wonderfully. But let's be real, the stuff that's a little easier to digest and understand is obviously going to be more popular. So yes, just sometimes I think Adele might be a little overrated. Yeah, I think that sometimes. But then I listen to a new record of hers and I'm just like, wow, this woman can really sing. This woman really has an ear for musicality, an ear for finding that really emotional melody. and there's a lot of appreciation for music of the past in there. And I think that she is a truly powerful musician in that regard. And so I won't ever, won't hear any Adele slander from me on this channel. All I will say is I definitely prefer her ballads. I do not as best suited to doing up-tempo filler 3-minute party tracks. I just don't think that that's her lane. It's not the kind of record I want. I am so glad that she did not choose to succumb to making a very polished pop, urban, contemporary Ariana Grande, Rihanna type record. I didn't want her rapping, especially if it was like the bulk of the record. There's room to have some fun, but this album is certainly not that much fun. And that's just the time she's going through in her life. But there's always going to be the ups and downs. That's all I can say. Overall, I think this album deserves Album of the Year at the Grammys. There are probably stronger albums out there, but they're never going to be considered for the Grammys, so that's how I think about it. It's sort of like, if this is the only album of those that's going to get nominated, then this one deserves it, especially considering 21 and 25 won. Now, 21 definitely deserved it. I don't know if this album is better than 21, but I think it is definitely up there with it. I think 25 was not nearly as good as people thought. I think it was a lot of hype, and it was a lot more underwhelming than this album is for me. But maybe it's just the time of my life, and maybe it's just my own taste. I am really enjoying these tracks, and I'm going to be listening to them for years to come. So those are my thoughts. Let me know which yours are. If you agree, disagree, if you think this is her best album yet, as many publications have been saying. This has gotten some of her most critically acclaimed reviews yet, which is something, because I've seen a lot more divisive thoughts on like Twitter and such, which is kind of interesting. Which leads me to think it is definitely going to be a contender, if not a winner, for that Album of the Year 2023 category, but time will tell. Hopefully she doesn't outshadow Beyonce again. That would be very unfortunate. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I will see you all in my next review. I will link my Easy On Me review in the description if you'd like to see that. And I will see you all in my next video. I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed day. Peace, love, and light. Bye.